You're listening to the CIP podcast, the Study Abroadcast Season 5, Episode 7. In this show, we explore the world of study abroad, offering advice, insights, and travel stories, bridging perspectives and cultures along the way. My name is Andrew, and I'll be your host. I'm currently a third-year arts and sciences student, minoring in nutrition and psychology. I studied abroad in Linköping, Sweden during the fall 23 semester, so that was last fall, and I'm currently a peer helper for CIP. So today's episode revolves around academic planning for your semester abroad. Choosing courses to ensure you're on track to graduate can seem daunting. Fortunately for you, you have your program counselor to help you at every step of the way. And with that, I'd like to introduce our guest for today who helped plan my semester abroad, Sarah Bradley. Do you want to give a little introduction about yourself and what your role is here at the University of Guelph?
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. First, thanks so much for having me. It's exciting to meet in this format. So my name is Sarah Bradley, and I'm a program counselor on campus. I specifically advise students in the Bachelor of Arts and Sciences, as well as the Bachelor of Creative Arts, Health and Wellness. And so that's my title, and how I generally help students on campus is helping them plan towards their graduation. So that may be course selection, or if a student were to transfer from another program or go on exchange or need certain accommodations, working with SAS, of course. I would help students navigate right from like day one of selecting at Guelph to crossing the stage. And if students don't know where to go for something on campus, I'm a pretty good liaison connecting students with the right place.
Okay, awesome. All right, so just shifting over a little bit to focus more on studying abroad and doing exchanges. What is your role specifically for helping students plan their study abroad?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So sometimes students will come to me just wanting to talk about study abroad, which I'm happy to do briefly, but I will always connect students back to the Center for International Programs as the place to explore which exchanges are available and which ones might be the best fit for them. But where my role would come in is that talking about how courses would transfer back and how they would work specifically towards the Bachelor of Arts and Sciences. So I would work together with the Center for International Programs a little bit. They'll host sessions about the different schools and places and how that might go. And then I would connect students with the exact, this is how it would transfer back to your degree program.
Okay, and then just kind of extending on that, is there any specific thing that you want to outline that like that's what you do and what you don't do, or students are often asking you to do this particular thing that's not within the scope of your position?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So something that students will often ask is they'll send me a course from their university, say in England, and say, will this course count as Biochem 2580? That's something a little bit beyond my scope as a program counselor because I'm not a curriculum expert. So that's when the three of us, myself, the student, and the faculty advisor, will have a kind of triangular relationship where we would be checking in with the faculty advisor for biochem to see if that's an appropriate substitution. So as an example, a student would be looking for perhaps an upper year biochemistry course. They would look for that at the school abroad and send that to the faculty advisor, who are the curriculum experts on Guelph's campus, to ask if it's an appropriate substitution. Once we got a yes from them, then the student would ensure that I'm flagged on that, so I know that's an appropriate sub. When students are using straight electives or straight any 2000 plus psych, that's easy for a program counselor to do. Like we can recognize that's an upper year psychology. It just needs to be any upper year psych, or we can recognize that's an elective. We can do that. Where we would need the faculty advisors, which is a very common question for students, is if they want a direct sub for a course. So I always advise within Bachelor of Arts and Sciences that students use all their electives abroad. Our students do have enough space in their degree planning to use all electives abroad. So that would be my basic advising for BAS students: use electives. Definitely, if you're listening and from another degree program, not everyone has that much elective space. So your program counselors might have different guidance in terms of that. But for myself and BAS students, they can use their electives abroad. If they find themselves wanting a direct substitution, we would be involving the faculty advisor for a curriculum sub.
Okay, and do you recommend taking electives while abroad because it's just a lot less of a headache, for lack of a better term, than getting the direct course, or is there something that's like something else that
Kind of
contributes to
twofold.
why? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. So kind of twofold. One, it's administratively just easier for the student.
Right.
And we have enough space within the BAS program to do that. So a question that I know that we've talked about, you might ask later, but is what
Yeah.
year I would recommend. So if it's
Yes.
okay, I'll jump to that.
Yeah, go for it.
With BAS students and most students across campus, I will say, is exchange in third or fourth year tends to be like the most popular. With BAS students, I would recommend second semester, third year, early fall of fourth year. And what I would recommend students do is hammer through their required courses while here at Guelph, saving their electives, and then they get to use their electives while they're abroad. One, it's administratively easier. They don't have to search through course descriptions to find similar courses. They don't have to send them to faculty advisors to have back and forth where the faculty advisors may say no on some of the substitutions. So administratively easier for the student. On the second side of things is sometimes students also would find that some of the electives they choose can be relevant to their learning experience. So as an example, we just had a BAS student came back that studied in Australia and took courses such as like the Indigenous peoples of Australia and like elective courses that were related to their cultural experience abroad. And often some schools will often offer courses that are like meant for exchange students that allow students to take those weekends to travel and to go by nearby countries and have a bit of a lighter course load, which can be more challenging when you're taking an upper year biochem course or something that is a direct substitution. So it's kind of twofold. I think it allows students to study what they genuinely want elective wise related to culture, and it's administratively easier.
Okay, yeah. I totally agree with that whole electives thing. Because I mean, for me, like when I went to Europe, because Europe is so accessible for traveling when all these different countries, having a lighter course load definitely helped me achieve some of my travel goals in that sense. Okay, so what is the best way for students to reach out to you? Like, what's the best mode of communication? What kind of things should they be asking?
That's it. So the email I prefer is bas@uoguelph.ca. Or if we do have any creative arts, health and wellness, they have BCAHW, but the BCOT email is the ones I prefer. And students are welcome to reach out anytime. Sometimes students reach out really early when they haven't actually accepted a school or been accepted to a school abroad. That's probably too early to involve myself as the program counselor because we don't have course descriptions to look at. We don't know where you'll be heading. So my advice is to stay in contact with CIP and see where you get accepted. And then once you've accepted your offer or you've been accepted to a certain school, then you'll be able to search their course outlines and such. And that's a great time to connect with me to see to double check that you have enough room for all electives, to see if I have any advice on which non-electives I might recommend you do. As an example, for BAS, I might say you actually have your arts core left. That might be a good thing to use while abroad as well. And that would be a good place to start. And bas@uoguelph.ca would be my preferred email.
Okay, awesome. So definitely once they've been accepted, then the academic planning part should start. Okay, so then with the academic planning and planning your courses, there is something that people who are going on exchange need to fill out. It is called an EPCS form. Would you be able to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So that's a great time that we would work together, and it'd be the student sign it as well as myself. That's the form where you would write in the course codes and titles for the schools abroad, and I would write what they would transfer back as. So an example might be you might find a psychology course, a psych of sport course that you might find at a school abroad, and I would write that would come back as psych 9201, which means it's coming back as a second year psych course, and it would be worth 0.50 credits. So I would assess that and I would sign off on that as a pre-exchange agreement. And that would often be when we would have the conversations as different schools. I was talking to a student today, and at her school 60 credits equals 2.5 at Guelph, at other schools 30 credits equals 2.5 at Guelph. So we would have those conversations and we would look at what your courses would transfer back as. Not all students end up taking those exact courses, but they try their best to. But there's really good conversations that happen there, where students understand like that perhaps they're at their 1,000 level limit, and it's really important that they don't take any more 1,000 level, or whatever conversations might happen. But that's the pre-exchange form, where students would suggest classes they might be interested in, and I would give them an idea of how they would transfer back.
Okay, perfect. So then as the pre-EPCS form, so if I'm taking, like you said before, like Biochem 2580, is that where the faculty advisor would sign that instead of you if I were to want to get that back?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would still sign it, and this is why I ask this of students. So I would say, I'll use your name. I'd say, Andrew, if you find an approval from the Biochem faculty advisor for a course, forward me their approval so I can save it in your file. That way, by the time I do the pre-exchange form, I can look and see, like, I can see that this professor approved this, so I'm going to write it in as a sub. So some students will come to me and they have like a sub for a nutrition course, and they have a sub for a psych course, and then they have some electives. But I would have saved in their file the 2 forwarded emails they have from a faculty advisor approving those courses. So it would be me signing off on them, but the faculty advisor, I would have a saved approval from them in your file.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we've talked about the pre-EPCS. So once you return from exchange, you have to fill out the post-EPCS, and then I would send that to you. Can you talk about how that one works?
Yeah. So we would want to do that once you have your final transcript. Every school has a bit of a different timeline. Some are pretty fast after you return, and some can be slower. But once you have the official transcript, which is actually sent directly to exchange, not to yourself, once the exchange says like, hey, Andrew, I have your final transcript, please connect with your program counselor to get this transferred back. That's when myself and the student would reconnect with a post-exchange form. This time, we would only write the courses on the form that the student actually took, and I would look at the official transcript and see, like, yes, that they were passed, and that credit was earned, and I would write in the like final decision on like how they're transferring back, and sign off on that. And that together, myself and the student would resubmit that to the exchange office, and they would be able to get the courses put onto your transcript.
Okay, perfect. Okay, just transitioning here into a little bit more of a broader scope. What would you say that some of the benefits are of participating in a study abroad or exchange program?
I think it's such a wonderful opportunity. I would recommend it to any student who has interest at all. I think some of the big things that I see students grow in terms of is confidence and independence. It is something that students are an added thing to navigate, especially going to a different country that perhaps speaks a different language, perhaps has different cultural norms, different transit systems, different ways of life in general. I see students come back a very excited, confident version of themselves, which I think is a really like wonderful experience to have. But I also think you learn a lot about other people, other cultures, and other experiences that humans have in the world. I would highly, highly recommend it to students. And some of the courses you take abroad, as I mentioned, may enhance your learning about that culture as well, such as the course I mentioned earlier about Indigenous peoples of Australia. And as you mentioned, Andrew, being in Europe, you could bop around to different countries and learn a whole bunch about a wide variety of cultures and people. So I think that that's a huge benefit of the study abroad programs. But if a student were to come back and like talking about it, even from a job opportunity way or a way of applying to any opportunity, whether it be master's programs or jobs, I think a big piece are some of those soft skills, such as independence and confidence and ability to plan and ability to work with a wide variety of people. I think it's a really, really wonderful opportunity for students to take advantage of.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's like a really enriching and like develop, like it really helps you like develop as a person. I think that can be used, like it helps with your personal life, and then also you can leverage that, and it does look good on a resume.
Totally.
For whatever you're planning on doing in the future.
I agree.
Okay. So what would you say is the main question or like questions that you get as a program counselor from about students studying abroad?
The main question I get is how are the credits going to transfer back?
Right.
And I totally understand. Of course, that's the main question I get, right?
Yeah.
So I think the big thing is as a BAS student, if you're young in your degree listening to this, save your electives. That's going to be the easiest piece for you. But if you're a student who perhaps transferred into BAS or changed minors throughout the way, and you're like, oh, I don't have that many electives, then you and I might be doing a little bit more back and forth, working with faculty advisors to figure out how that's going to happen. And then also ensuring that when you apply to schools abroad that they offer your minor specialization areas. I know that they don't use those terms with CIP, the Center for International Programs. But if you really badly need nutrition courses when you're abroad, making sure you're going somewhere that is approved for nutrition majors will be very helpful to you. But that's that is the main question I get, and I'm here to support in that way. Even if you come to me and you ask the question and I say that's a great question for the faculty advisor, here's their contact information, that's okay. That's what I'm here for. I'm a good place to start regardless.
Okay, awesome. Yes, that is great to know. All right, so as we come to a close here today, do you have any additional important information or helpful tips for students that we haven't yet covered in this interview?
This is a little bit of personal insight, I would say, but I would say like there's a wide variety of things that students are obviously looking for abroad. I meet with some students in the school that they go to. It's really important that to them that school offers housing. My understanding is not all exchange programs. Some you have to find your own accommodations and some you don't.
Yeah.
And then other students, similar to what you did, Andrew, it's important to be in Europe so that they can access other countries easier. Traveling throughout Europe's important to them. I think that going to the CIP info sessions, I would highly recommend, and you'll learn a lot more about what's offered through different programs. And I think things will come up that you're like, oh, I never thought of that. I know that speaking to students, some students will be looking for their own housing and they're trying to figure out which neighborhoods are the best ones to live in.
Right.
So knowing like what you're looking for and what going in can be really helpful. And the Center for International Program runs great sessions, and I highly recommend chatting with them. They're a really great resource to help you plan.
Yeah, nice. Okay. And I just wanted to add a little bit of my own personal thing, because I know you said that it's best to go in your upper year, third or fourth year. But I know when I came to you initially saying that, oh, I want to go on exchange, but I was in my first year at the time and I was planning on going in the fall of my second year. You were like, okay, it's totally possible. It's a little unconventional, but it is possible. So I was able to make it work by doing all electives. And pretty much all that meant for me was that when I came back to Guelph, all I have are my required courses left. It means I don't really have much freedom within what I'm choosing, which was fine by me. But that's just to say that it is possible to do it whenever you think it's best for you.
I agree. Yeah. And you and I talked offline about this, but I remember you coming to me because I didn't meet with many res students about exchange, but it worked out great for you and you're on a great academic path. And yeah, students will come at different times. And again, I've talked a lot about using electives, but if you are a student that doesn't have electives, come talk to me anyway, and we'll see like how we can make it work. Exchange is a wonderful opportunity, and we want to make this work for you folks if that's something that you feel called to.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, with that, that'll be all for today's podcast. Special thanks to our guest, Sarah, for her valuable insight and for taking the time to speak with me today. If you're looking for more information about studying abroad, you can head over to our website, uoguelph.ca/CIP, and follow us on Instagram at CIP_Guelph to keep up with all things study abroad. Stay tuned for our next episode where we look to unpack the study abroad experience even further.
Bye, everyone.